If you've been alive long enough, you've more than likely seen or at the very least heard of an anime produced by this studio. Kyoto Animation isn't just a name in the credits, it's a feeling, a reputation, a quiet promise that what you're about to watch will be beautiful, emotional, and handcrafted with absurd attention to detail. They're the studio that made quiet moments feel louder than explosions. Never chasing trends, they instead made stories that stayed with you. Shows about band practice, unspoken love, or a single letter that could hit harder than an entire shonen war arc. But it wasn't just their art that left a mark. In 2019, Kyoto Animation suffered an unimaginable tragedy when an arson attack destroyed Studio One and took the lives of 36 of their artists and staff. It was one of the darkest moments in anime history, and yet somehow they came back. Violet Evergarden the movie marked their return, a breathtaking story that felt like a thank you to everyone who never stopped believing in them. That's what KyoAni does. They don't just tell stories, they pour themselves into every frame. I don't know about you, but I was relatively young when a lot of these masterpieces were released, and maybe that's why they stuck with me. Because their stories became part of my life, and I've carried them with me ever since. They broke me, healed me, and showed me that animation can be every bit as raw and powerful as real life. That's why today, I want to highlight 5 KyoAni series that capture what makes this studio so beloved. These are shows that don't just tell great stories, they leave something with you. A feeling, a moment, a reason to keep watching. So if you've never watched a KyoAni series before, this is where you start. Clannad After Story isn't just a continuation, it's a transformation. If you've only seen the first season of Clannad, you might think you're in for a sweet, slow-paced school romance, and to be fair, that is where it begins. You spend time with Tomoya and Nagisa, their friends, their awkward growth, and the daily rhythm of their lives. It's a comfortable watch, one that gives you a small but familiar world to relax in. But After Story doesn't stay small, it expands, it grows up with its characters, and before you realize it, you've left the classroom behind entirely. What makes After Story so powerful is how deliberately it builds emotional trust. You really get to know these people, not in some rushed, plot-driven way, but slowly through daily life, mistakes, shared meals, and conversations. And then, just when you've settled in, it starts to ask harder questions. What happens after high school? After the happy ending, when reality starts to show up in ways that love alone can't fix. Unlike most romances that fade to credits once the couple finally gets together, After Story starts there. We follow Tomoya and Nagisa not just as lovers, but as adults trying to figure out how to survive, support each other, and find meaning in a world that isn't always kind. It's a story that grows into marriage, into work, into parenthood, and into loss. Real heartbreaking loss, and the endurance that follows it. It's not always subtle. There are melodramatic beats, some supernatural elements, and yes, the ending has always been controversial, but whether or not the final episodes work for you, the emotional journey that leads there is unmatched. And visually, this is KyoAni settling into its prime. The backgrounds are gentle but lived in, the town feels real familiar, like a place you might actually come from. It's full of construction zones, weather changes, paths that characters walk over and over again. Even the art direction reflects how much After Story is about the time passing and lives evolving. The music is just as important. The opening theme is one of the most emotionally resonant in anime. And the insert songs, while occasionally a bit much, still hit more often than not. Some viewers dislike the cheerful ending theme, and sure, it doesn't always match the tone, but it's also a reminder that this show isn't just about sadness, it's about holding on to the light in the dark. What really cements After Story as essential viewing is its honesty. It doesn't glorify trauma or dress it up with over-the-top stakes. It just lets life happen, beautiful, difficult, and unfair, and asks how we keep going. And that's not something most anime even try to do. It's not a perfect series, but it's an unforgettable one. If you've ever been told anime can't make you cry or that slice of life isn't worth your time, this is the series that proves otherwise. And if you're the kind of person who finds meaning in quiet stories that grow into something much bigger, this might become one of your favorites too. Some stories begin with restraint, measured in their tone and pacing, but as they unfold, they leave a mark you can't ignore. Violet Evergarden is one of those stories. After the war ends, Violet, a young woman who who once served as a child soldier, wakes up in a hospital with metal arms and no idea where she belongs in this new peaceful world. Taken in by a former officer named Hodgins, Violet joins a postal company and begins training as what's called an auto memory doll, a kind of ghostwriter who helps people put their emotions into words. And it's here, in the most unlikely profession for someone who barely understands emotion herself, that Violet begins her real journey. At first, she can't express anything, her voice is robotic, her posture is stiff, even writing a simple letter proves frustrating. Her clients are often shocked or offended by how blunt and literal she is, but something starts to change, slowly, gently. As Violet listens to others speak about grief, regret, love, and hope, she begins to feel those things herself. The pacing of Violet Evergarden is deliberate, unfolding with a sense of grace and patience. Early on, we see Violet learning what it means to feel, how to interpret emotions, how to listen, how to write with meaning. As the series progresses, she takes on jobs that connect her to people carrying their own burdens. A playwright haunted by loss, a mother preparing letters her daughter won't read for years. Their stories carry weight, shaping Violet in ways she doesn't expect, and staying with us long after they're told. What makes these moments so powerful is the sincerity with which they're presented. Each episode stands on its own, but together they form a larger picture of a girl slowly finding her place in a world she was never supposed to survive. Visually, it's breathtaking. The lighting, the use of color, and the well thought out backgrounds all contribute to an atmosphere that feels rich and lived in. Violet is often shown in vast empty spaces, her isolation reflected in the way the world seems to stretch away from her. As her emotional awareness grows, so does the warmth of her surroundings. Flowers, lamplight, and natural details appear more frequently. The sound design carries just as much weight. Sometimes it's soft, other times it swells with feeling, but it always moves in step with Violet's growth. And while not every track will stay with you forever, when it lands hard. Certain themes paired with certain letters will stay with you far longer than you expect. Violet's development is subtle but profound. She starts this series as someone who only knows how to follow orders. Her trauma, her emotional distance, her fixation on words like I love you, they're treated as part of who she is, part of the reality she's trying to understand. There are moments in Violet Evergarden that feel almost too raw, scenes where emotions are expressed not with dialogue, but silence, gesture, and restrained movement. And it's in those scenes that you realize how rare this kind of storytelling really is. The kind that trusts you to feel what's happening, even if it can't easily be explained. Not every episode hits perfectly, the pacing can be slow, some people might find the drama heavy-handed, but if you're open to it, Violet Evergarden offers a kind of emotional experience that few anime even attempt. It's about learning how to live after something unthinkable happens, about carrying grief without letting it consume you, and about realizing that understanding someone is maybe the closest thing we have to love. Hey there, looks like you've been caught in Dio Stan the World. While time's frozen, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss any future content. Alright, time's up, back to the video. If you're someone who enjoys character-driven stories where the stakes are personal and the mysteries are subtle, Kyoka is one of the most rewarding experiences KyoAni has to offer. On the surface, it's a mystery show, but not the kind with murders or conspiracies. Instead, Kyoka focuses on the small, often overlooked puzzles of everyday life. Questions buried in school festival planning, old yearbooks, or forgotten memories. And the answers often reveal more about the people than the mystery. We begin with Hotaru Areki, a high school student who lives by one motto: if I don't have to do it, I won't. If I have to do it, I'll do it quickly. He's sharp, observant, and completely uninterested in putting effort into anything. But everything starts to shift when he's forced to join the classic literature club where he meets Chitanda. She's the opposite of Areki in almost every way, bubbly, kind, and endlessly curious. Her signature phrase, "I'm curious," becomes the engine of the show, dragging Areki and their friends into mystery after mystery. Some are lighthearted, others carry a soft emotional weight, but nearly all of them serve a deeper purpose: to peel back the layers of the characters, unraveling them. That's what Kyoka does so well. Every mystery is about understanding how each character approaches life. The progression is slow, but that's the point. These aren't grand revelations, they're small realizations that build over time, often between long conversations, glances, or hesitant decisions. It's quiet, introspective storytelling, the kind that doesn't need dramatic stakes to feel meaningful. And visually, Kyoka is a masterclass. This is Kyoto Animation operating at full strength. The animation is beautiful and expressive. When the characters start theorizing, the visuals often shift into abstract, imaginative sequences that illustrate their thoughts in real time. Scenes turn poetic, lighting changes, color flows. It's one of the rare shows where style enhances substance in every scene. What really makes Hyoka special is its restraint. It doesn't over-explain, it doesn't force character development with big speeches or flashy moments. Instead, it trusts you to watch closely, to notice how Reki's expression changes over time, how Chitanda's enthusiasm begins to affect everyone around her, how friendships evolve through small shared experiences. If you've ever felt like your school days were filled with questions you never knew how to ask, or emotions you couldn't quite name, Hyoka gets it. It doesn't tell you what to feel, but it creates the space for you to feel it anyway. This is the one that put Kyoto Animation on the map. If you're even remotely familiar with anime, you've probably heard of the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. It's weird, it's witty, and it's one of the most deceptively layered shows to come out of the 2000s. And while it might wear the disguise of a typical high school comedy, it has far more going on underneath the surface. We follow Kyon, a jaded high schooler who's long given up on the supernatural until he meets Haruhi Suzumiya. She's energetic, demanding, and immediately declares she's not interested in ordinary humans. Within days, she ropes him into forming the SOS Brigade, a club dedicated to finding aliens, time travelers, and espers. The twist, all three actually exist, and Haruhi, unbeknownst to herself, is the reason they do. What follows is a surreal balancing act, a slice-of-life comedy spiked with cosmic stakes. The club members, each with their own secret role in managing Haruhi's reality-warping powers, must keep her entertained and oblivious, or risk the unraveling of the entire universe. But what makes the show so unique is how grounded it feels despite the sci-fi absurdity. Kyon's inner monologue anchors the chaos with sharp, dry commentary. His sarcasm doesn't just make him likable, it reflects the audience's confusion and curiosity in real time. He questions logic, pokes at tropes, and ends up becoming one of the most relatable narrators in anime because of it. And Haruhi herself, she's not just loud and unpredictable, she's someone searching for meaning. She wants her life to matter, to be exciting, to escape the dullness of reality, and in doing so, she creates a world where that search reshapes everything around her. She's both the catalyst and the cautionary tale. Some may find her overbearing, but she's a portrait of youthful frustration taken to godlike extremes. Stylistically, Haruhi is bold, from its iconic out-of-order broadcast to entire arcs that test your patience and perception. It challenges the viewer without ever losing its charm. It breaks fourth walls, plays with narrative structure, and inserts just enough absurdity to make you question what you're watching while always keeping you hooked. And if you're someone who likes hidden details, references, and rewatch value, Haruhi has that in spades. Background gags, parodies, subtle callbacks, it's the kind of show that feels smarter every time you go back to it. But the real crown jewel of the Haruhi franchise is The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, a full-length film released in 2010 that takes everything great about the series and pushes it to its emotional peak. Without spoiling much, Haruhi vanishes, the world resets, and suddenly Kyon is the only one who remembers how things used to be. It's surprisingly heartfelt. The pacing slows to a crawl, and you feel Kyon's isolation in every scene. His usual sarcasm gives way to something raw, a subtle unraveling that builds into one of the best internal monologues ever written for anime. The film recontextualizes the entire series. It asks what all the chaos, comedy, and sci-fi actually meant. And more importantly, it asks whether Kyon deep down wanted all of it to happen in the first place. It's a story about loss, realization, and the slow, painful clarity of understanding what you truly value after it's gone. Add to that some of the best animation KyoAni has ever produced, plus a haunting piano-led score that lingers long after the credits roll, and The Disappearance becomes essential viewing. You don't have to love every episode of Haruhi to appreciate what it was trying to do, but if you stick with it, especially through the movie, you'll find something rare. A show that plays with genre expectations while delivering something genuine. It's funny, experimental, occasionally frustrating, and kind of brilliant. Of all the anime on this list, Sound Euphonium might be the one that best captures everything Kyoto Animation is loved for. Gorgeous visuals, emotional subtlety, and a commitment to making the ordinary feel profound. On paper, this is a show about a high school concert band. The music club is just okay when the story begins. They're a ragtag group with big dreams, namely making it to the national band competition, but very little direction. Sound Euphonium isn't a story about achieving greatness, it's about earning it, slowly, imperfectly, and sometimes painfully. The main character, Kumiko Ume, is one of KyoAni's most grounded protagonist. She's unsure, emotionally messy, a little awkward, and completely believable. She doesn't monologue about her goals. Half the time, she's not even sure if she wants to be there. And as the club practices, struggles, and occasionally falls apart, you start to realize why this series works so well. Every character matters. Everyone in the band feels like they have a story, even if the camera only lingers on them for a few seconds. Whether it's unspoken ambition, guarded brilliance, or the tension between friends chasing different goals, there's always something simmering just beneath the surface. This isn't melodrama though. It's personal. Small conflicts, jealousy, insecurity, burnout are treated with the same weight and care you'd expect from a character drama, not a music club anime. Even the romance, which is understated and sometimes left unresolved, fits neatly into a world of teenagers trying to figure themselves out. The animation is absurdly detailed. Light plays naturally across instruments, characters move with a subtle realism that feels studied, the way Kumiko adjusts her grip on the euphonium, or how Reina's breath control changes during performances. The sound design is equally precise. You don't need a narrator to tell you when the band is struggling, you hear it. Early rehearsals sound rough, notes are off, timing is shaky, then as the club improves, so does the music. By the time they hit their final performance, you feel the payoff, not just in story terms, but in sound. For musicians, the show is a love letter to the reality of band life, the long practices, the internal politics, the frustration of chasing perfection, and even if you've never picked up an instrument in your life, there's something incredibly relatable in the club's dynamics. Everyone wants something slightly different, everyone thinks they're trying their best, and sometimes that's exactly what creates conflict. Sound euphonium reminds you that talent isn't enough, that effort matters, that doing something as a group means compromise, patience, and emotional investment. And above all, it shows how art, even in its most humble form, can bring people together, push them to grow, and give them a reason to care. If you ever thought a story about high schoolers playing music couldn't move you, this one just might. It's hard to talk about Kyoto Animation's legacy without bringing up A Silent Voice. This isn't a series, it's a single film, and it hits like a freight train. At its core, A Silent Voice is about communication, or more specifically, what happens when it breaks down. The story begins with cruelty, a boy bullying a deaf girl in elementary school, and then lets us sit with the fallout, shame, guilt, isolation, the consequences of words left unsaid or said too late. What makes this movie unforgettable is how deeply it explores the emotional weight of its characters. The fear of being seen, the desperate need to connect, the unspoken apologies we carry into adulthood. It doesn't have a traditional resolution, and it doesn't need one, because A Silent Voice is about the effort to reach out, to listen, to forgive. KyoAni's craftsmanship is on full display here. Every scene feels alive with subtle motion. Light, shadow, sound, every detail has intent, from the realistic use of sign language to the soft, trembling silences between lines of dialogue. Some fans criticize the condensed pacing compared to the manga, but the emotional truth of the story still lands. If you're willing to sit with it, let it get under your skin a little, A Silent Voice offers a rare kind of empathy. It's not a perfect film, but it's an important one, and in many ways it represents everything KyoAni does best. There's something about a KyoAni project that feels different. Maybe it's the stillness before a character speaks, the way light filters through a classroom window, a glance that says everything without a single word. Maybe it's the care in every frame, the lighting, the animation, the way characters feel less like drawings and more like memories of people you've known. Or maybe it's the heart, the sense that everyone behind the scenes truly cares. KyoAni doesn't just animate stories, they breathe life into them. They give space to emotion, they let quiet triumphs matter, and in a landscape that often favors spectacle, they remind us that these small, personal things, grief, love, regret, hope, those are the stories worth telling. But what makes their work even more meaningful is what they've endured. The unimaginable loss in 2019 didn't break them. It brought their global community closer. It reminded the world that this studio wasn't just a business, it was a family. And that family, scarred but unshaken, is still creating beautiful things, still telling stories that mean something. So if you've ever laughed with Tomoya and Nagisa, cried for Violet's final letter, felt the tension of a concert hall with Kumiko and Reina, or simply found yourself leaning forward, caught in a moment of curiosity alongside characters who feel achingly real, then you already know what makes Kyoto Animation special. And if you haven't, then maybe now's the time to find out. Catch you in the next one.